Rupert squatted down over the tracks. His pipe emitted a final puff of smoke. The sun hung low, casting long shadows across the path. He traced the imprints with a finger, his brow furrowed in concentration.
Minotaur?
This far north? Unlikely. Definitely bovine from the marks here and here. Walks on 4 legs.
Big. It's about 2 of me tall. Following some friends too.
I'd say these are about 3 days old. If we do find them, they're either alive or frozen corpses by now.
And let's hope the ones being followed are still with us.
A long silence fell upon the group, broken only by the crunch of snow under their feet and the occasional rustle of branches void of leaves brushing against each other in the wind.
There, we made it.
Annabelle relaxed for a moment until one of the guards looked up at her. His eyes were glazed and unfocused, his lips cracked and bleeding. The faint mumbles of the guards reached their ears, shaking and barely coherent.
Blessed be the family. Blessed be the family.
The guards recoiled from the approaching trio, their movements jerky and unnatural. Jeremias looked the men over, seeing deep cuts on their hands. One was missing fingers. He sat down his cabinet and got to work, his movements swift and efficient despite the gruesome nature of the wounds.
The family?
Rupert and Annabelle's heads raised as the faint sounds of drums were carried on the wind. The rhythmic beating sent a chill down their spines, a primal fear stirring in their hearts.
The family?
Rupert watched as Jeremias tended to the guard's tortured hand. The guard couldn't pull away from the tight grip Jeremias had as the rushed medicinal pastes were applied. He then pulled up the guard's sleeve to reveal not skin, but muscle tissue. He could see clearly the tendons working the guard's clenching fingers. Jeremias, without hesitation, went back to his cabinet, but found himself in someone else's grip.
Save it.
He's hurt. I can make it better.
Jeremias could feel Rupert's grip tightening in mutual frustration while he looked through the streets, his eyes hard and determined.
The tracks continue into the city. Whatever it is, it sounds like an honored guest.
Prepare yourselves.
Jeremias looked back to the guards as he followed Rupert. The drums grew louder, echoing through the empty streets.
What did he mean by the family?
Rupert stayed stoic and silent as he moved. The drums grew louder now, echoing through the empty streets. As they reached the square, the scene that unfolded before them was one of unparalleled horror. The beast, a massive red-furred bull, lay at the opposite side of the square, its head low and swaying with the rhythm of the drums. The creature's eyes were wild and crazed, rolling in its skull as if possessed by an unseen force. Its breath came in ragged, labored gasps, each exhale a cloud of mist in the frigid air. Surrounding the bull, in a macabre circle, humanoid figures danced as if in a joyous festival, but their movements were awkward and unnatural, like marionettes controlled by unseen hands. Each step they took revealed new horrors, their bodies a canvas of torture and mutilation.
The dead are dancing.
Their eyes were fixed on a distant point, unfocused and empty as if staring into the abyss of their own madness. Their smiles were grotesque, some forced by fear, others carved into their flesh with a cruel precision. The skin around their mouths was raw and inflamed, the result of repeated, forced grins that stretched their cold, dry lips to the point of tearing. Tattered robes and gowns hung like rags from their emaciated bodies, barely concealing the atrocities beneath. Their feet left bloody footprints in the snow. None of them seemed to react to the cold on their bare skin. As they raised their arms in mock celebration, the dull light of the square revealed the true extent of their suffering. Their arms were nothing more than muscle and tendon, the skin and flesh flayed away, leaving raw, glistening tissue exposed to the bitter cold. The bones of their fingers jutted out at unnatural angles, some missing entirely, leaving only stumps that dripped with blood and pus. Their torsos were a patchwork of wounds, deep gashes and burns that crisscrossed their chests and backs. Some had their ribs exposed, the bones yellow and brittle, while others had their stomachs carved open, intestines spilling out in a grotesque display of viscera. The air was thick with the stench of decay and the coppery tang of blood, a nauseating aroma that clung to the back of their throats.
The family.
Rupert and Annabel stood in stunned silence, their eyes wide with shock and revulsion. The scene before them was a nightmare made real, a testament to the cruelty and sadism of whatever force had orchestrated this macabre spectacle. The drums continued to beat, a relentless rhythm that seemed to pulse with the suffering of the tortured souls. A sinister lullaby that echoed through the square. Rupert turned to Annabel, but only caught a glimpse of her as she darted into a building. The faint sound of a clambering rifle was all he needed to hear.
When the faithful gather, the veil between worlds shall thin, and the ancient ones shall take notice. Their eyes shall turn to the beast, seeking those who call upon their power. And in that moment, the chosen shall be marked, forever changed by the touch of the divine.
The covenant of the flame is sealed in blood and ash. It binds the bearer to an eternal vigil, guarding the sacred fire against the encroaching darkness.
A voice of Apocrypha.
Iskander and Silvara turned their heads up from the festivities to the new faces in the square.
Prepare yourselves.
Rupert and Jeremiah stood side by side, their senses heightened as they surveyed the guards closing in on them. The town square now echoed with the ominous clanking of armor and the distant murmur of the priests. The paladin moved first, with precision born of years of training, his feet dragging on the snow-covered cobblestones. As the first guard lunged at him, Rupert parried the attack with a fluid motion, his blade clashing against the guard's weapon. He spun, using the momentum to slice through the guard's armor, leaving a trail of sparks and a shallow cut. The guard seemed to snort a challenge through his bovine helmet. Jeremiah turned, hurling a small vial at a group of guards, releasing a cloud of smoke on impact. The guard stumbled, disoriented, giving Jeremiah the opportunity to charge forward. He grabbed one by the throat, lifting him off the ground with ease, slamming the guard into the ground, cracking the very stone underneath the snow. Seeing the smoke starting to dissipate, he stomped hard into the chest of the guard, caving in the thick metal with his immense weight.
Jeremiah, cover my left.
Jeremiah acknowledged the order with a nod. He reached into his pouch and pulled out a small porcelain pot, hurling it at a cluster of guards. The explosion sent shrapnel flying. The armor of the guard held strong as sparks erupted from the metal. It was enough to stagger them, clearing a path for Rupert to advance. Rupert darted through the chaos, his sword a blur of color as it found weak points, severing hands and limbs. Through his calculated frenzy, a guard charged at him, but Rupert stepped to his side as the guard overshot his movement, and Rupert found himself behind the guard. Rupert brought his sword across the back of his legs, bringing the guard to his knees. The lament of the guard was heard through the helmet as he tried to stand, but the ligaments were cut through. The guard's leg was useless, but the determination was still there as he reached for his sword, ready to continue the fight however he could. Rupert and Jeremiah worked in sync, each covering the other's back. Rupert's swordsmanship was a dance, a deadly ballet of steel and precision. Jeremiah's strength and alchemical weapons kept some of the guards at bay as they tried to make sense of the unusual weapons. The honor guards' numbers were many. They encircled the duo, slowly closing in with blades drawn, all pointing their swords at their cornered prey.
You're a long way from home, old wolf. What brings you to this den of the damned?
See that this is not tainted, priest. My viper will make short work of these intruders. The blood offered in the chalice is to only be offered to the flayed one.
None shall take from the chalice, madam. I swear on my life and after.
He gave a respectful bow before tightening a golden lid on the top and made his way back into the city, accompanied by one of the guards. As Iskander descended from the shrine on the bull, he opened his cloak, his crimson armor glinting in the low light. A spiked chain fell from his arm, coiling into the snow. The spikes dug into his own arm, an act of self-mutilation, coating the spikes in his own blackened blood.
All of Lieska is watching you.
As Rupert and Jeremiah braced themselves for Iskander's assault, the air crackled with tension. Iskander could barely hide his excitement, a smile widening over his lips like a predator who had selected his prey. Iskander's first strike was a brutal swing of his spiked chain, the barbs tearing into Rupert's side, drawing a gasp of pain. Iskander's eyes glinted with sadistic pleasure. Staggering back, his vision blurry, he quickly regained his footing, his grip on his sword tightening. Jeremiah charged forward, his instinct to help Rupert, trying to draw Iskander's attention. He hurled a vial of alchemical acid at the vampire, but Iskander was too quick, catching it simply with his hand and casting it down onto the ground next to him. The ground hissed as the acid ate through the top layer of cobblestone. Iskander turned his focus to Jeremias, his chain whipping through the air. It lashed out, wrapping around Jeremias' arm, the barbs digging deep. Jeremias grunted in pain, his muscles straining as he tried to break free as it tore into his previous wound. Iskander yanked hard, pulling Jeremias off balance and sending him crashing to the ground. The vampire loomed over him, his fangs bared like an alpha asserting dominance over a challenger.
You're just a brute. You do not think before you act.
Jeremiah struggled to rise, his arm bleeding and his movements sluggish. He reached into his pouch, pulling out a small silver pot, but Iskander was already upon him. Iskander kicked Jeremias' arm, forcing him to drop the pot. Then with an elegant flick of his chain, he sent the pot skittering across the cobblestones. Jeremias tried to stand to chase after it, but Iskander's chain lashed out again, wrapping around his leg and yanking him down. Rupert's sword flashed the low light through the stained glass before engaging the vampire, but Iskander's chain wrapped around Rupert's wrist, the barbs biting into his flesh. The vampire twisted, wrenching the sword from Rupert's grasp, sending it skidding across the snow.
You're out of your depth, assassin!
His fangs bared, his arm a mess of blood and flesh from the chain's embrace. Iskander's cruelty was on full display as a flurry of strikes were released, carving Rupert's arm, chest, legs, and neck. Iskander lunged, the chain lashing out one final time, wrapping around Rupert's neck and yanking him close. The vampire's fangs sank deep into Rupert's shoulder, the pain searing and intense. Rupert cried out, his body convulsing as Iskander's venom coursed through his veins, a toxic fire that spread through his muscles and bones. Meanwhile, Annabelle made her way to a second-story window, her eyes scanning the chaotic scene in the town square below. Rupert and Jeremias were engaged in a fierce battle, their movements a blur of steel and alchemy against the relentless assault of Iskander and his guards.
I need to find a target.
The vision was a blur as the fractures around Iskander raged like hellfire, twisting and slashing with cruel intent. He was unreadable, his speed unimaginable. It seemed every move was possible all at once. Annabelle tried to focus, her target hidden behind the blue haze. The motion twisted her stomach as she looked away, vomiting on the wood floor next to her. As she recovered, a figure emerged from the shadows, one of the city guards, his eyes glowing with an unnatural light. He had sensed her presence and was now stalking through the house, his movements predatory as he searched.
I can smell you, little one. Rot has yet to grace your flesh.
I have to make this quiet.
Annabelle set her rifle down, not wanting to reveal her position, and drew her dagger instead. She knew she had to deal with this threat quickly. The guard kicked open the door, his sword at the ready. Annabelle braced herself, the fractures shimmering around the guard.
You're just a little girl playing with a knife. You don't stand a chance.
Then let's play.
The guard captain lunged, his sword arching towards her. Annabelle saw the haze shift, indicating his intended path. She sidestepped, the blade missing her by a hair's breadth. She countered with a swift strike of her own, her dagger slicing across the guard's arm. He hissed in pain, but his attack was relentless, his body seemingly resistant to the pain.
Is that all you've got?
The guard pressed forward, his sword a whirlwind of steel. Annabelle danced back, the fractures guiding her movements. She could see the patterns in his attacks, the slight shifts in his stance that betrayed his intentions. She parried a strike, her dagger clashing against his sword, and then spun, her blade finding its mark in his side.
Yes! Another!
The guard staggered, but he was far from defeated. He roared, charging at her with renewed ferocity. Annabelle met him head-on, her dagger flashing. They traded blows, their weapons clashing in a symphony of steel. The guard's strength was immense, but Annabelle's agility and foresight kept her one step ahead.
You're slowing down, old man.
The haze around the guard intensified, pulsing with each of the guard's movements. Annabelle feinted left, then darted right, her dagger slashing across the guard's back. He turned, his sword arching towards her head, but Annabelle was already moving, ducking under the blow and driving her dagger into his thigh. The guard hissed, almost enjoying the new wound. The guard fell to one knee, his breath coming in ragged gasps, yet a smile crept over his lips. Annabelle stood over him, her dagger at his throat.
Yield. I don't want to kill a son of Rostovka.
The guard snarled, but he knew he was defeated. He lowered his sword, his eyes still burning with hatred.
You can't stop them.
Just as Annabelle was about to secure her prisoner, a sudden blinding pain shot through her head. The room filled with blue, as if Iskander was standing in front of her again. Her vision shook as she retched. This time, nothing came out, as she collapsed to her knees. The guard, sensing her moment of weakness, lunged forward, his sword slashing towards her unprotected side.
Now, you're mine.
Annabelle barely managed to twist away, the blade grazing her ribs. She cried out in pain, her dagger falling from her numb fingers. The guard loomed over her, his sword poised to deliver the final blow. But then, as suddenly as it had begun, the pain in Annabelle's stomach subsided, and she saw a flicker of the haze, just enough to anticipate the guard's next move. She rolled to the side, the guard hesitated for a moment. Annabelle seized the opportunity, kicking out with her foot and sending the guard stumbling back. She scrambled to her feet, grabbing at her dagger as she rose.
You can't escape me.
The guard charged again, and Annabelle met him head-on. They clashed, their weapons locking, their faces inches apart. The guard's breath was hot on his skin, his eyes burning with a feral intensity. Annabelle could feel her strength waning, her body aching from the exertion of the fight. With a final desperate heave, the guard pushed Annabelle back, his sword pressing against her throat. She gasped, her eyes wide with shock and pain. The guard's fangs bared, a cruel smile playing on his lips. Annabelle's vision faltered, her strength fading. Her body betrayed her in her moment of need. The guard's sword pressed harder, a thin line of blood welling up on her skin. She closed her eyes, a single tear slipping down her cheek as the world around her faded to black. Rupert collapsed to his knees, his strength sapped, his vision fading to black. Iskander stood over him, a triumphant smirk on his face, his fangs stained with Rupert's blood, his arm a mess of blood and flesh from the chain's embrace.
You're just an old dog, Rupert, and I am the one who will put you down.
The square fell silent, the drums ceasing their relentless beat as if the very air held its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Rupert lay on the ground, his body broken, but his eyes still burned with defiant fire. Jeremias was torn and bleeding, and managed to crawl to Rupert's side, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He looked at his friend, a mixture of fear and determination in his eyes.
Rupert, we're not done yet.
Jeremias looked to the pot that was tossed away. Rupert followed Jeremias' gaze, and without a word, Rupert moved slowly, every muscle aching as he prepared his battered body for the next move. He turned, kicking snow into Iskander's face. It was a minor annoyance, but it was enough. Jeremias, leveraging his size, lurched forward on all fours, swiftly grabbing the pot. With a mighty heave, he threw it toward Iskander.
Enough with your tricks!
Iskander coiled the chain and whipped the pot out of the air. It shattered, releasing a dazzling spray of silver fire. Iskander's eyes widened. Even with his speed, he couldn't dodge the explosive force. Shrapnel and silver fire peppered his body and face, causing his skin to sizzle and burn. Jeremias and Rupert, fueled by adrenaline and desperation, made their escape. Jeremias ran to the left, Rupert to the right into the alleys, through the city's congested passageways as he pressed his hand against the gash in his shoulder. His vision blurred, the poison racing through his veins. Each step was a battle, his body screaming in agony, driven by the primal instinct to survive. The walls seemed to close in, the shadows deepening with each step. He could hear the distant shouts of pursuit, the clanging of armor. The alleys were a treacherous maze, and Rupert knew that one wrong turn could be fatal. Jeremias glanced back at his pursuers, the honor guard with swords drawn, ready to re-engage. His body, already battered, ached with every movement. He turned to face them, knowing he couldn't outrun fresh soldiers. He raised his fists, squeezing them until they released tension and cracked. The guards closed in. He lunged, his knuckles connecting with the metal of the guard's helmet. His hand exploded in pain as blood began to pour from the impact. The guard stumbled, but another quickly countered, bringing his sword down on Jeremias' arm. The thick furs on his wrist caught the blade, preventing a deeper cut. The guard's sword was slashing and cutting with fierce intensity. The furs began to tear with each slash, blood pooling in the tattered remnants. Jeremias' arms were weakening, the relentless assault taking its toll. He reached out, grasping the sword by the blade. It bit into his hand, but he held firm. He dared not recoil, knowing that any movement could bring the blade inches from his head.
Come on, just a bit more.
The two men were locked in a tense stalemate, neither able to gain the upper hand. Suddenly, a sharp crack echoed through the air as the guard's head snapped to the side, and he collapsed to the ground. Jeremias' body throbbed with pain, reminding him of the damage he had sustained. Through blurred vision, he scanned the street. He saw 3 small trails of smoke, one from a familiar gun and two more silhouetting a friendly face.
Annabelle.
The sight of her gave him a flicker of hope amidst the chaos. He knew that as long as Annabelle was nearby, there was a chance for survival, even if it was for a brief moment until she moved back into the alleys.
Alone. That's how they like to be. Yes.
Jeremias was alone again, alive but feeling the cold more intensely than ever before. He looked over the street, his eyes scanning the dark windows of the surrounding buildings, finding no sign of warmth or life. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the occasional creak of a sign swaying in the wind. He kept moving, his steps faltering as he tried to rewrap his tattered furs around his wounds, desperately attempting to stem the flow of blood. The city seemed to stretch endlessly before him, a labyrinth of shadows and echoes. Each twist and turn through the streets felt like a journey into the unknown, the darkness pressing in from all sides. Jeremias' breath misted in the frigid air, his lungs burning with each inhale. He pressed on. Then, like a beacon in the night, a sound reached his ears. A melody so pure and ethereal that it seemed to defy the harsh reality around him. It was music, like the voice of an angel, carried over the harsh winds. The notes danced and weaved, a hauntingly beautiful contrast to the desolation of the city streets. Jeremias followed the sound, his heart lifting with each step, drawn to the promise of warmth and life. As he turned a corner, he found himself in front of a pair of beautiful oak doors, intricately carved with scenes of a bygone era. The doors stood tall and proud, a testament to the grandeur of a time long past. Above them, a sign swayed gently in the wind, its letters faded but still legible. The Lyric Theatre. Jeremias reached out a trembling hand, pushing the doors open with a creak that echoed through the night. Inside, the music grew louder, enveloping Jeremias in a cocoon of sound. The theatre was a vision of opulence, with velvet curtains the color of deep wine and gilded walls that reflected the soft glow of candlelight. The air was warm and inviting, a stark contrast to the icy streets outside. Jeremias stepped further into the foyer, his eyes widening as he took in the grandeur before him. The chandelier above casted a kaleidoscope of light, dancing across the polished marble floor. As he moved deeper into the theatre, the music swelled, each note resonating within his very soul. The stage was set for a performance, the curtains drawn back to reveal a single woman, dressed in white armor with red furs, spinning on the stage. Her movements were fluid and mesmerizing, yet there was an underlying unease to her grace, a hint of something darker beneath the surface. The beautiful interior began to sour as the smell hit him first. Similar to the square, the stench of rotting flesh and festering wounds filled the room. The faint sounds of moans came flooding from the inside, a chorus of suffering that sent a shiver down Jeremias' spine. He looked left and right down the aisles. The attendees were not captivated, but captive. Wire and rope held most of them down to their seats, their mouths covered in dirty rags, muffling their cries. Others were not so lucky. Crude nails held the rest, driven through their arms and curved at their heads in every direction, making escape impossible. He approached a young woman, her skin turning green and purple. He knelt down, lowering his hands to the nails, attempting to bend and pull at the twisted metal. The woman recoiled from him, her eyes wide with fear and mistrust. Jeremias looked desperately back at the woman, silently trying to convey that he was there to help. The woman only responded like a caged animal, rearing back and whimpering.
Lend me your eyes. Tonight, the stage is ours. You are the audience and the offering.
Her words hung heavy in the air, a promise of something far more sinister than a simple performance. The audience watched as the woman on the stage continued her dance, her sword flashing in the candlelight. The music reached a crescendo, the woman's voice carrying the tune, a haunting melody that seemed to echo the despair and suffering of those trapped within the theatre. Jeremias realized that he had stumbled into a place of unimaginable horror, where beauty and cruelty intertwined as the conductor in white bowed low for applause that never came. The square in the center of Rostovka lay quiet, disturbed only by the heavy breathing of Phalaris and the sizzling of fire and acid on the cobblestone. Iskander stood amidst the carnage, his yellow eyes darting between the tracks in the snow, contemplating his next move. His rage blinded him to any choice of which tracks to follow.
Are you still with me, Iskander?
Iskander's face softened as he turned to her. A brief moment of vulnerability before his usual stoic demeanor returned. He wanted to speak, to express the turmoil within, but Silvara interrupted him.
I sensed that you were not before.
A smile played on Silvara's lips as she descended from her perch, her movements graceful and predatory. She approached Iskander, her cold hand cupping his cheek, yet even her touch was warmer than the frigid air that assaulted his face.
There it is.
Silvara's eyes pierced him like a surgeon's knife, carving away at the layers of his emotions until she found what she sought. Her voice was a soothing balm to his restless soul.
They must not be allowed to live. If they draw breath, our plans are at risk.
Iskander's voice was ragged, the simple prying of Silvara's questions more taxing than the battles he had endured.
And they won't. The Brotherhood of Agony will prevail. Garvain has killed the heretics, their blood filling our cup. Lyora, for all her faults, has proven herself reliable, just as you expected her to kill the Baron's son.
Silvara's fingers trailed over the scorched armor of Iskander, a gesture both intimate and possessive.
And Thaler has earned his keep. Maybe even enough to get our blessing.
Iskander's face hardened for a moment, a flicker of emotion crossing his features.
You would condemn one of the Brotherhood to death.
We are no longer bound by the old ways. This is why we are here. To break our chains and truly live as our father wanted us to live. Let go of the past and embrace our future.
Iskander took Silvara in his arms for a brief moment.
To let go would be to release the pain that drives me. I would go mad without it.
The moment was interrupted by the stumbling entrance of a ragged guard captain of Rostovka. A knife protruded from his side, and he clutched it tightly, keeping it from falling free and opening his wound further.
My lady and lord.
Before he could finish, he was quickly set upon by honor guards, their blades drawn and ready. Iskander and Silvara did not react to the captain, enjoying a brief moment of silence before Silvara looked up, her eyes sharp and focused.
Brother Thaler, I see even now, after our triumph, you have kept busy.
She stepped away from Iskander and walked with purpose toward the injured soldier. Placing her hand on the guard's heavy blade, she forcibly lowered it.
It is not often our spy sees a battle like this.
The woman fought like a demon. Her movements were those of one possessed.
Her?
Yes. She wore a mask of leather covering her face. Her eyes were broken and shattered.
Silvara's eyes twinkled with a mix of amusement and cruelty, a crooked smile playing on her lips.
Curious that you still wear the face of the captain and not hers.
Her movements were perfect, as if she could see my next attack coming. I only bested her out of luck. She seemed ill. At the moment she collapsed before ending me, I took my chance.
Silvara stepped closer, her hand finding the handle of the blade that pierced Thalor, her eyes narrowing as she applied pressure.
Good. Then bring her to us so we may savor your victory with you. These Cassius zealots always taste so sweet.
Thalor's gaze faltered for a moment, only to be brought back by the searing pain in his side as Silvara twisted the knife. Her lips peeled back, fangs fully on display, a predatory grin spreading across her face.
She's still alive.
I...
Fix this mistake quickly. You don't have much time. You will be useful either way.
Thalor tried to speak, but Silvara interrupted him with a harsh shove. He stood a few feet back now, seeing Silvara's hand still in possession of the knife. She raised the bloody blade to her nose, inhaling deeply. A stream of warmth ran down Thalor's leg, a stark reminder of his injury.
Yes, Madame Silvara.
He moved as quickly as he could down the snow-covered streets, his mission clear, and time was short.